They call him Mr. Champions League, and for good reason. Cristiano Ronaldo has won the competition 5 times, scored more goals than anybody else, assisted more goals than anybody else. In the finals alone, he scored 4 goals and holds a record of 5-1. He's been the face of domination in Europe's biggest club competition. But amongst those 6 finals, which performance was his best? What final was his worst? Let's break them down one by one. Ronaldo's first final came against Chelsea in 2008. He was just 23 years old, playing for Manchester United. He lined up on the left wing, and he ended up facing Michael Essien, who had been repurposed as a right back for that match. Despite being doubled frequently, Ronaldo was able to find pockets of space in order to exert his influence. He scored a superb header in which he peeled off unmarked and rose to meet the ball with perfect timing. But in open play, his impact, I would say, was a bit of a mixed bag. He did a good job of beating Essien in the dribble, but I would say that a lot of his final balls were somewhat inconsistent. I thought his crosses were a bit rushed, and his playmaking wasn't up to par for what I've seen him do. And he went on to miss the penalty in the shootout as well. But overall, United still went on to win the game, and I thought that he had a solid game throughout. Although, just like I said, a little bit some playmaking issues, but I thought overall he had a good game. 1 year later, we had the rematch of the 2008 semifinal between Barcelona and Manchester United, but this time it was on the biggest stage. Barcelona were peaking, led by Lionel Messi, having the first year of what many would consider his prime, and they were on their way to a historic treble. Ronaldo, like United, started off strong. However, United collapsed after around the first 10 minutes. With Piqué and Yaya Toure anchoring Barcelona's defense, Ronaldo just had one shot inside the box all game. However, despite that, he remained as United's primary outlet, trying to spark counters, hold up play, and he took on a lot of the physical punishment every time he touched the ball. I do think in many ways, actually, that this might have been his most complete final performance because he stood out in a team that was totally outplayed, and he essentially had no offensive help whatsoever. However, United went on to lose the game 2-0. However, I still give Ronaldo a lot of props for his drive and resilience in playing in a team that was otherwise outmatched. We fast forward 5 years, and now we're in 2014 against Atletico Madrid. This was his first Champions League final for Real Madrid, and they came off fresh, dominating a bunch of German teams in Schalke, Dortmund, and Bayern Munich. The latter of two actually knocked them out in the 2 previous Champions League seasons, and they went off against their city rivals in Atletico, who had just been crowned La Liga champions. Atletico's team was mainly built off of their defense, and you could see that a lot in this game. They played hard-nosed box defense. They conceded a lot of possession to Real Madrid, and this was shown in Ronaldo's performance, which, in my opinion, was a bit muted. His movement looked a bit stiff, and he wasn't carrying the ball as well. He completed just one dribble and had very few 1v1 moments. He was used more as a target man to link up play and drop deep than as an outlet like in the other final. His goal came from the penalty spot. Granted, he did earn the penalty himself in what could be considered a dive, maybe. I thought it was a bit questionable in terms of if that foul was a penalty or not. And he also got an assist as well. However, I'd probably give Marcelo more credit for that, as I think he did most of the heavy lifting for that goal. But nevertheless, this was Ronaldo's first Champions League with Real Madrid, a milestone moment, even if it wasn't exactly a vintage performance. We then move a further 2 years, and we get a rematch of the 2014 final. This time, this was the start of Madrid's legendary three-peat run. Ronaldo had entered the final having scored a staggering 16 goals in that campaign. However, again, in this match, I do think he was pretty invisible. He really struggled to create space or beat defenders consistently, and his touch looked a bit off as well. I can really only think of one standout moment in build-up where he had a quick combination with Isco and Bale after beating 2 defenders. However, that chance had fizzled out as well. Yet somehow he still was able to write the final chapter when he stepped up and converted the winning penalty in the shootout. So it was clutch. However, the performance wasn't memorable, in my opinion. This right here was vintage Ronaldo. Madrid had just won La Liga. They knocked out Napoli, Bayern, and Atletico on their way to Cardiff. He came in with this final with 8 goals, but left with 2 more and the trophy. His first goal came with a perfect 1-2 with Carvajal and a clinical finish that was just out of Buffon's reach. His second came with a blindsided run, which connected with Modric's cross, and he was able to squeeze it in at a tight angle. He wasn't on the ball as constantly, but his off-ball movement was superb, and he was still able to create opportunities for his teammates by running through the channels as well as down the byline. He pressed, he finished, and he owned the moment. And for many, they believe that this was his best Champions League final. And we have his last final against Liverpool. Not only his last final, but his last game for Madrid, as well as the last Champions League of that three-peat. He came in 33 years old with 15 goals, still top scorer of that Champions League season. However, for the match itself, I would say he was a non-factor. He really only had like one shot the entire game, which was a tame header that went straight at Karius. He had another big chance on breakaway, but he took too long to take the shot and ended up being tackled by Andy Robertson. There wasn't really any magic or any specific moments that came to me when I was watching his performance in this game. And I would go as far as to say that the night more so belonged to Gareth Bale. However, he was still able to lead the Madrid to the win, lift the trophy, and was able to ride off into the sunset. 6 finals, 5 wins, 4 goals. We watched Ronaldo evolve from a flashy, inconsistent winger to a cold-blooded, off-ball poacher. In terms of ranking his UCL finals, his best for me, 2009. 2017 was his best in terms of dominance. I have 2008 as his third best, 2014 as his fourth, and then 2016 and 2018 I just have as 2 poor finals. However, I put 2016 fifth only because he actually scored the winning penalty, whereas in 2018, Liverpool pretty much shot themselves in the foot without him needing to do anything. So these are what I have as his final rankings for his Champions League record. And honestly, in conclusion, even when he played well, even when he didn't play well, he always found a way to break through every step of the way. And at the end of the day, that's what matters the most. And for me, that's why he is, or at least will forever be known as Mr. Champions League.